The Isaiah Factor Uncensored starts right now.
And welcome to The Factor Uncensored. Roughly 1 in 3 women are victims of domestic violence. It's often thought of as a women's issue. But there are men who are victims of this awful crime too. In fact, 1 in 4 men are victims of domestic violence, not a far off statistic compared to women. But a lot of times men do not talk about the abuse they endure because it's simply not talked about enough. We talked to an author about her book on this difficult subject matter. And joining us on The Factor Uncensored tonight is author Ann Silvers, and she is author of the book, Abuse of Men by Women. It happens, it hurts, and it's time to get real about it. And many people don't take the abuse of a man seriously. Why is that in today's society?
Yes, men are set up as if they're not supposed to need help. They're supposed to be in control of things. So it goes against the whole sort of the way we've boxed men in a way. And we've been so focused so long on men abusing women that it's almost like giving room for the opposite. There's people who feel like it takes away from the issue of men abusing women. From my perspective, it doesn't take it away at all. It's important that we are focused on both.
How do we begin to change this mindset in America specifically where men could be abused by women? How do you change that mindset?
Yeah, so the mindset is not about whether men are being abused by women. It's about acknowledging it. And so we have to start with education. We have to start talking more about it. And unfortunately, the whole man law around men don't talk is actually part of what gets in the way of the conversation. And then we need people to realize that it doesn't at all take away from conversation around men abusing women. If we start talking about, there's other configurations. It can happen in straight and gay and couples. It can be women abusing men, men abusing women. Abuse is bad. And we need to take that approach that we want to address it all.
Many times we witness this in the public where a woman will slap a man and people laugh it off. But if a man slaps a woman, then there's hell to pay.
Yeah. Yes, we need to be much more broad in our recognition that harm is done when a woman hits a man. It's not okay. And I totally agree that culturally we've gotten to a place where we're not only looking away when women are abusing men. Sometimes we're applauding it. Sometimes we're laughing at it. We got the "you go girl" kind of attitude about it. And we have to stop that. It's not okay.
And that leads to problems with law enforcement, with prosecutors, where they don't take these criminal cases against women seriously.
Very true. Very true. It's hard for men to find a hearing ear when it comes to, sometimes when it comes to therapists, when it comes to resources for domestic violence, police, the courts. Unfortunately, a lot of times it is skewed against believing men and towards believing women in these situations.
Who can men turn to in situations like this if it's so skewed around this country and with our mentality that, men, should be able to take it?
Yeah. Well, I would say read my book, Abuse of Men by Women. And also, I've got a blog post that I'm working on that's up and live, but I'm going to continue to add to resources for men, mental health resources that are geared towards helping men, and organizations that are working on helping men specifically in domestic violence, where they're the target of domestic violence.
And is it in part of the problem is
men themselves who are not willing to come forward, who are not willing to talk, who feel shameful to say, you know, my wife beat the hell out of me. And they don't know, you know, want the public to know.
Correct, because it feels unmanly. And we have to work on getting rid of that stigma, that it's not shameful. If you're being abused by a woman, reach out. And I get it, it's cautiously. Try to find somebody who will be able to hear you. When I started talking about the issue, I really didn't know how far it was going to go. I got my eyes open to the fact that women were abusing men and it was hurting men. And I started talking about it, and I'd be at parties and I would mention it in some part of a room, and men would just come towards me from the corners of the room to talk to me about their stories, because it was so refreshing for them, I think, to have somebody who would listen and get it, that it's happening and it's hurtful.
So what got Ann interested in talking about this issue at all? She shares how going back to school as an adult opened her eyes to the issue. We continue that conversation after the break. Stay with us. And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. Men are victims of abuse too. That's a mission a therapist and author has with her new book, digging into the side of domestic violence that is often unspoken. We wrap up with her now.
And we know you wrote a book on this issue, but what got you interested initially? What did you see? What did you witness? What did you experience in life that made you say, Ann, I need to put this in a book. I need to put pen to paper and write something to help the men out there?
Yeah, so I actually went back to school as an adult to become a counselor. And when I was doing my bachelor's in psychology, I did a minor in women's studies. A lot of that education focuses on men abusing women. In my family tree, there's a lot of partner abuse, both going in both directions. And I was really thinking I was going to focus a lot of my work on women and helping women. And I was like many people in terms of not recognizing the problem was broader. And I had a male friend who was being abused by his wife. I kind of minimized his stories when he first told me, but then it was clear. And so my eyes were opened. And that led me to recognize things I was seeing but not recognizing. And then I started talking to men. And like I said, they would just come up everywhere I went. Kind of men were telling me their stories. And I just felt, when I looked for resources for them, I couldn't find it. Mm-hmm. And I really was frustrated by the domestic violence and partner abuse resources being so skewed that if I were to send a man to that site, it's going to be all about examples of males being the bad guy. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to not help them see what their situation is. So I felt I had to fill that void.
And when we talk about this type of abuse, female on male, and what we've seen around the country, I think the latest statistics, I mean, 1 in 4 males face some type of physical abuse, but it is not just physical. It can also be emotional. Tell us the different types of abuse out there that men can endure.
Well, and men can be on the receiving end of physical violence too. I don't want to minimize that, but there are 7 forms of partner abuse. So there's psychological, emotional, verbal, financial, sexual, legal, spiritual. Have I hit them all? I'm not sure if I hit them all. I think that's all of them. Yeah.
And obviously, for those who are out there looking and searching for help, there are limited options, but you're trying to compile resources for men
Yeah.
around this country, and they can find that list so far. And I think you said it's a working list, right?
Correct. Yeah. So on my blog, annsilvers.com. No E on Ann.
And what would you tell men who are struggling to even come forward right now, who may be seeing this interview? What would you tell them to get them to either go to the police, see a counselor, seek some help to get past the image that we have as public, that men don't cry and men should be able to take it?
Well, I think, try and educate yourself, try and find some resources that are geared towards men so you can feel more supported, feel less isolated. I think this is a really big problem. It's like doubling the abuse. They could be abused by their partner, and then they're abused by the culture that is saying it's not happening. And so it takes like kind of an awakening to be able to recognize it's happening to you. And then, kind of reach out a little bit and see if someone will hear you. When you're looking at resources, kind of ask some questions. If you're looking for a therapist, ask them, do they even believe that men can be abused by women and that it matters? And try and see if you can sort of test out the potential resources.
All right.
And
Silvers,
cautiously. Yeah.
Ann Silvers, thank you for joining us on The Factor Uncensored with this valuable information tonight.
Thank you for having me.